on the track, running laps, yeah. Like I'm Roy, I'm living fast, switching lanes.
Today I'm bringing you guys a little special topic. Today we're going to talk about sprinting versus running. How you can apply both these methods to help you to improve, or if you're a new athlete, which one should you do? This channel is a sprint specific channel. We look at all aspects of sprinting over here. So, but without further ado, if you are a new sprinter or a beginner, or you're somebody who's just a regular Joe who's looking into get into sprinting or running, I'm gonna try my best to compare both and give you guys the best way to figure out which one would work best for you. So let's talk about it. Sprinting versus running, which one is better? So let's first of all break down what they are. Let's look at the basis of sprinting, right? Sprinting is an explosive movement over a short distance, right? It's an explosive movement, whether you're going for 10, 20, 30, 40, up to 100 meters, up to 400 meters. Um, and you're trying to give maximum effort. You're trying to be as explosive as possible. When we look at running, running is more of a longer distance with more of a sustained effort, right? As in, you're not trying to go as fast as you can in the beginning. You're trying to hold a certain pace and try to maintain that pace and gradually pick up the pace the more you get closer to the ideal distance, right? So, for example, you're running a 3,000 meter, or you're running a 5K, or you're running a 10K, or you're running a 1500, right? You're trying to set a pace, maintain that pace for a long time, right? That is the big difference. And one of the main thing you have to look at when it comes on to sprinting and running. Sprinting is speed focus. We're trying to move as fast as we can. So everything is going to be fast, quick, explosive. Running is all about endurance, right? You're trying to endure a certain amount of speed for a certain amount. You're trying to endure a run for a certain time frame. So, for example, you're trying to run 1500 meters in 4 minutes, right? You're trying to maintain a certain pace and endure through that for 4 minutes, and that's going to be the major differences between the two. Now, let's let's bust some myths right now, because there's lots of myths that are surrounding sprinting and running. Let's knock out some of the myths right now. Um, let's knock out the first myth that sprinting is only for short distance, as in, uh, everybody always say, "What's your 40?" or "What's your 60?" Right? So let's bust this myth. A 400-meter is a sprint. A 600-meter is a sprint, and it's just a longer sprint. But you're trying to go as fast as you can for 400 meters, right? When we get into the aspect of running, it's over 2 minutes. Anything over 2 minutes or longer, that will be considered running, right? But if you're trying to do one lap around the track, don't call it the middle distance race or quarter mile race. Legit is a 400-meter sprint. That's what it is. Right, so that's the first myth we're gonna knock out and bust down right there. Right, and then the other thing is, people think that if you are a sprinter, that means you're not supposed to do runs, or you cannot run to sprint. Right, there's this different aspects of your training where you could incorporate running training to help you to sprint fast or hold your speed for longer, if that makes sense. So that's the first and the main myth that I wanted to pop and bust down right away. All right, let's look at let's define sprinting. Let's define what it is, right? So there is a couple phases in sprinting. From zero to 30 meters, that's considered your acceleration phase, or your drive phase, some call it, right? 0 to 30 meters is your acceleration phase. The fastest sprinters in the world are able to hold your acceleration for up to 35 meters, right? After you get out of acceleration, then you go into max speed, right? So really and truly, there's only two phases of sprinting. Don't let anybody tell you nothing otherwise. It's only acceleration, and you get up to max speed. After you get to max speed, the best athletes can hold it until they get to the determined finish line, and some people are able to hold their acceleration and then get to max speed later, right? Like a good example of somebody who can accelerate for a long time is Noah Lyles or Usain Bolt, or another good one is Justin Gatlin was a really good like guy at holding his acceleration for long. So the biggest thing with sprinting is there's two phases. So you have acceleration phase and then you have max sprint phase. And a lot of athletes don't know how to separate the two. A lot of people get out and get up to top speed quickly and then you lose out, because if you could maximize on your acceleration, then it makes when you get up to top speed, you could go a little bit faster. So that's the biggest thing. Now, let's look at the definition of running. The definition of running, or when we think of running competitively or for a beginner, you're trying to sustain an effort over a distance, a long distance. And this distance is going to be over a mile, over a kilometer, right? For a sprint, you're under a minute or you're at 1 minute. For for the running, you're gonna be a mile or over a mile, right? And you're trying to build up a certain pace. So this is how most runners train. You would hear runners say, this morning they did a 5K and they did it at 3K, 305 pace, or they were at 259 pace or 258 pace. The pacing is the most important thing there, right? So every kilometers they're trying to. So for example, they get out and they start running, and their first kilometer they run it in so they run their first kilometers in 350, 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Now their goal is to try to maintain that 3 minute and 50 kilometer pace for 10 kilometer, or however much kilometers. That's why running is so fascinating, because you have somebody like a distant runner, like for example, Haile Selassie, who can maintain a 2 minute per mile pace for 10K, right? That's normal, right? Like for myself, when I did my 5K, I was maintaining 5 point, like a 5 minute and 30 per kilometer, something like that. Now I was not going extremely fast, but I was able to sustain that for a long time. Now, let's look at let's look at the key differences between sprinting and endurance, right? Both sprinting and endurance require strength. You have to be strong to do both of them. That's why sprinters strength train and then runners also do strength training. So there's a tie in there with strength. I would say sprinters are a little bit stronger than runners because they have to be more explosive. So their type of strength training is going to be a little bit more advanced and a little different. Most runners can get away with the most basic strength training and still get see major improvements in their performance. Right, so they both have to prioritize physical strength, which is very important for both of them. So now let's look at the biomechanics of sprinting. This is my favorite topic, guys. If you know anything about me, right? I love the mechanics of sprinting. That's how I improve. That's how I got faster. That's how I get all my athletes to get faster. So the biomechanics of sprinting starts with maximum power and explosiveness. Those are the two things you need to think about when we're thinking about the biomechanics of sprinting. Biomechanics mean how the muscle operates to get you from point A to point B. It's all about maximum power and explosiveness. Maximum power meaning fast, which muscle fibers are trying to contract and move as fast as you can, and explosiveness is going to be how fast the muscle is moving, right? That's going to be the biggest thing when it comes on to sprinting, the biomechanics of sprinting. The biomechanics of running, however, has a lot to do with efficiency, sustained energy usage, right? When I think about running for 10 minutes, I'm not trying to go as fast as I can, but I'm trying to make sure there's no leaks in my form, so I'm not twisting from side to side. I'm not rocking my head back and forth. I'm not heel striking. Like little things like those will break your form down and you won't be able to hold your form for longer, right? So for running, it's all about efficiency and it's all about sustained energy usage. That means when I say sustained energy usage means I don't want to be going as fast as I can in the beginning and then I break down at the end. I'm trying to get out, hold a certain pace and maintain that for a long duration, right? That's going to be the big difference. So biomechanics of sprinting is explosive power, and it's all about being as twitchy, as fast, jump as fast as you can. And when it comes on to running, it's about efficiency and energy usage. Those are going to be the biggest things, right? And for both of these, your form will dictate how far you could go and the level of injuries that you will sustain. Right. So if you have a really good form, whether you're a runner or a sprinter, you'll be able to um, sprint for longer, run for longer, and be able to hold your form and perform better, higher performance, right? Like the best performance in any sprint sport or in any sprint event or in any running event. There's zero to little leaks in their form. That means their foot is landing in the right place. Their arms, there's no twisting. It's literally art in motion. Perfection is what you're looking at, right? So it's always good to be working on your form, right? Those are going to be the biggest things. Next thing we're going to look at now is let's talk about training for sprinting, right? When we think about training for sprinting, the goal is power and explosiveness. So when I'm in the gym, I'm thinking build as much strength as I can, be able to move weights fast, be able to jump high, jump forward, jump side to side. I want to be able to lift my body weight and move as fast as I can, right? So in training, there's going to be a heavy focus on plyometrics. For if you're a sprinter, there's going to be a heavy focus on explosive, quick exercises. And plyometrics could be, it could vary depending on where we are in the season. We could make a whole event video talking about how to set up plyometrics as a sprinter, as a beginner to advanced. So for weightlifting now, right? Weightlifting is going to be for sprinters, it's almost going to be the same thing as powerlifting, right? Sprinters are power lifters because in the gym, we're trying to move heavyweight, we're trying to maximize strength. But there's a key difference. We're trying to move the weight as fast as we can, and we're trying to develop strengths in certain area. And also we're trying to develop movement so if I'm lifting, most of my lifts are going to be specific to sprinting. So I'm trying to develop movement in certain planes with weight to move as fast as I can, if that makes sense. So that's going to be the biggest thing. So here are some simple methods. If you want to work on some acceleration, I would say that would be the first thing to work on if you're a sprinter. If I'm trying to work on some acceleration, I'm going to be doing some hills in the early season. Then I would do cone runs, and then I would put marks down and start doing ins and outs to work on different aspect of my acceleration. So I will put 10, 20, 30 meter down, and then I would set that up where I'm getting out to 10, then getting out to 20, then getting out to 30, then put it all together. Right. So that would be a good way to work on acceleration. And then I would transition that into top end speed training where I'm stretching it out even further, and I'm doing ins and out where I go easy at a certain cone and I pick up at the end of the cone, right? Little stuff like that. And again, I could do a whole I could do a whole video on how to structure this type of training for sprinting. And then there's also going to be an aspect of training where we're focused on plyometrics. I like to incorporate plyometrics, sprinkle a little bit of plyometrics in my training every day. So we're getting a little bit, and then we progress it as the season goes along. That's how you would set up sprint training. Again, sprint training is all about power and explosiveness, right? Now let's look at running training. Running training is all about endurance and efficiency, right? When we think about that, we're talking building our cardiovascular endurance system. As in, I'm trying to make sure my lungs are strong, so I'm trying to run. I'm trying to do mileage. I'm trying to run at a certain pace, being able to maintain a certain pace. I'm testing VO2. It's all these things come into play, right? And as a as a runner, the biggest thing you have to think about when it comes down to training is the main two components is pace training and interval training, right? Your pace training is going to set you up for when you go to a track meet. So if your body's used to going at a certain pace, then when you get to a track meet, whether or not there's a fast person in the race, boom, you know your pace, you hit that pace and you just get going. Right? Interval training is what you use to build your base, build your aspect of your race. And then think about it. At the end of every distant run or every mileage run or whatever you're doing, your body's under fatigue. So if you're able to accurately or efficiently use that energy over time, then you'll be able to perform better. So it's all about efficiency, it's all about pace, it's all about that interval. And then the two biggest thing you have to think about when it comes on to running is your form and your cadence. Your form meaning um, your arm swings, where your foot is landing. Are you heel striking? Are you midfoot striking? Are you rolling the foot? There's so many theories out there. We don't know which one works. All I know is when I'm going to compare information, I'm going to look at the best runners in the world, and then I look at what they're doing, right? I'm not going to look at just some guy who just makes a YouTube channel talking about what worked for him, right? And he's not telling you about all the injuries that comes with running that way or running with incorrect form, right? So the biggest thing is making sure your form is right, right? And the next thing you want to do is focus on your cadence. I would say for cadence, meaning your stride length and frequency. You don't want to overstride as in you're taking little baby steps, right? I see a lot of beginner runners do that where they're not running from the hips, they're running from the knee and they're taking baby steps and they're on the heel like that, right? And then you see them later on and their knees are messed up, their lower back is messed up, and their hip is messed up because they're not running properly, right? So you want to focus on your form. I would say incorporate sprint drills because they work for runners as well. You're doing the same movement. It's just that sprinters exaggerate the running movement, right? So work on your form, work on your cadence. Focus on being smooth. Focus on being consistent with your stride. Not like a sprinter. Even though as a sprinter, you still want to be consistent with your stride power, but as a runner, you want to be balanced with your pace. That's going to be the biggest thing. Now, what we all have been waiting for. Which one is better? Um, in Jamaica, we call everybody runners, right? We just say some people run long and some people run fast, right? So I'm not gonna say one is better than the other. I'm just gonna say that be very real with yourself. If you're somebody who is not the fastest, try other stuff. You don't have to, not everybody is built to run the 100 meters. So you don't have to be like, okay, I'm trying to be Usain Bolt, right? You can go, what if you're a better 400 runner? What if you're a better 800 runner, right? So there is no there's no perfect, there's not one that's perfect and the other one is perfect. All depends on your goal. So if your goal is just to improve your speed, then sure, sprint, right? But sprint properly, learn how to train, learn how to sprint properly. If your goal is to be very efficient, run for long, stack those mileage up, same thing. Learn how to do it correctly. That's going to be the biggest thing. And if you're trying to maximize on sprinting, you have to think about being very explosive for short distance. If you're trying to maximize on running, you have to think running for consistent speed over a long, extended period. And those are going to be the top things that you have to focus on. So I could break down sprint training and running training in a separate video. If you made it to the end of this video and you want me to leave a like, leave a comment, let me know that it's real. And until the next one.